We are on air, so welcome to Tech Talk Live. This is episode 79. We're talking about the Mavenized Alfresco SDK 2.0, and here we've got our Alfresco consulting customer success extraordinaire, Gabriele Colombro, and we have our community contributor, tutorial writer, Maven expert extraordinaire, Ole Heiskov. So I apologize that I'm so bad at Dutch names, but I'm not Dutch names, Danish names. So I did want to go through, just update people on a couple of community items before we dive into today's topic. First of all, records management version 2, 2.2, 2.3, I don't remember, but it's built for Community Edition 5.0. So for the past month, people that have used Community Edition 5.0.a haven't had a records management that matched, and that is ready. It should have been released yesterday. I think there was a little problem with the links. I think they're resolved now, so that should be fun. Also, we've got some events coming up. On August 15th, we're having office hours, and this is our this month I have a special guest. Doug Dennerlein, CEO of Alfresco, is going to join us. He's excited to meet a bunch of members of the community and contributors and hear your questions and your concerns and give you a chance to meet him a bit. And he's a frank talking kind of guy. It's a good opportunity for you to get his perspective on things and see what his vision for Alfresco is and his view on the community. He definitely sees the importance. Also, coming up, we're going to start doing a new series of podcasts. John Newton is going to talk about industry items that are important for content management, for enterprise software, for technology. I don't have all the details yet, but keep your eye out for those. Hopefully they'll start up in the next month or two. And then we do have a couple meetups. The group in Sevilla are meeting in September, and of course Alfresco Summit is happening in San Francisco in September and in London in October, and we have the annual hackathon related to that. We're still setting up the wiki page for you to list your projects, but if you have a hackathon project, keep it in mind so you can propose it. We're going to announce that in the next little bit. And of course, if you're a speaker at Summit, then we'll have speaker training as well. So you should have received an email from me about that. I'm going to email the invite to the actual event this week, so keep your eye out for that as well. I believe that's all the summary announcement items that's not directly related to the SDK, but there's some neat stuff here too. So I enjoyed seeing the demo video. Ole's put together some really cool stuff, and Gab's done a lot of work on updating the old SDK. I remember, Gab, you and I joined Alfresco about the same time. I think you were before me. I've been here 4.5 years. How long have you been an employee, Gab?
Just a little above 5 years.
Yeah, that's just a little. So, of course, you were the expert when I joined, but we learned on the old SDK, and when I looked at it 4.5 years ago, it had old stuff in it then, and such a relief to see it on GitHub with clean stuff, new examples. I hope I expect that people that start learning about Alfresco today will have a much easier time because of the work you two gentlemen have done. So. How long have you been an Alfresco developer, Ole?
I've been working with Alfresco for 3.5 years, almost, or is it 4 years, something like that. And I have my own team here at work with 5 developers that I push around and tell them what to do. So yeah, I'm kind of like the team leader.
That's excellent. And what resources did you use to learn about Alfresco when you started?
Well, I tried starting out with the Alfresco wiki, which is horribly outdated, and it still is. And after I failed miserably to learn anything from that, I just decided to check out the source and go through it. Every time I had something I wasn't sure of, I just checked the source, and that is the best documentation to date. It's probably better today, but the source was really the main selling point for me to learn it.
Good advice, I think, for all developers. So that's great. So, in addition to the source, in addition to some of the online documentation, we've now got the SDK. And so, Gab, you said you prepared a little bit of an intro to the SDK. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for putting this together, Rich. As you were saying before, we have been seeing this long odyssey over the last 5 or 6 years towards a more fully featured SDK. So I'm really happy to be able to give a nice update today, not only on the SDK side of things, but also on sort of what happened on the Alfresco side. So I'm going to share my screen with you. You tell me if actually can see my screen.
Yep.
You can see it?
Yep.
Great. So
it looks we're seeing the slide side instead. Oh, maybe it's about to show now.
Is it coming up?
No, we were seeing the slide view rather it wasn't the presenter, it wasn't the presentation side, it was had the list of slides.
Can you see now the presentation, or I think
drop in the screen share.
Just give me a sec. Let me just try to share again. Just try to share the desktop. Okay, I guess you guys are seeing yourself now, but can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So, I would like to certainly go quickly into the demo side of things, but I want to give you, an update, sort of a little bit of recap of what happened over the last couple of years, where we have seen, a lot of focus, not only from the community side on the, Maven SDK, Ole being, the main external non-Alfrescan contributor to the SDK, but also a whole number of things that actually happened within Alfresco in the Maven area, and I think that are really enabling all the achievements that we can actually do from the new version of the SDK. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I'll give you a quick update as to what happened with Alfresco and Maven. Then we're going to look at the main features and where we are with the development of the SDK 2.0. And then we'll move quickly into the demo part, which should hopefully be the most interesting and sort of surprising part of this presentation. So before we even start, I just wanted to put a disclaimer out here. We are heavily developing on the SDK right now. So, I am working on it. We have a huge, very, very active community on it. Maurizio, Pillito, and Ole are doing, great job there to make the SDK more and more feature-proof. So, in a way, right now we are talking, and what we'll be presenting today, it's a snapshot version of the SDK. It's the latest snapshot version that you find on the Alfresco repository. So your mileage may vary. If you want to push it even further, my mileage may vary during this presentation, since we certainly have tested some of these use cases, but as you can imagine, being under heavy development, there are lots of moving parts. So you are entitled to make fun of me if the demo breaks, but I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there. The plan here is to release a version of the SDK as a sort of first stable release, fully working with Alfresco 5.0a, hopefully later this week. So just quickly back to the sort of overall picture of what happened lately, in the Maven nation of Alfresco. So I think the most important mention that we need to do here is that the Alfresco build, after 8 years, it's actually now fully Mavenized. We have released the Alfresco Community 5.0a, as Rich, I think, anticipated in the previous Tech Talk Live, completely with Maven, and I want to give my personal kudos to Samuel Langlois, our release manager. This wouldn't have been possible without him and without his constant dedication. So all my respect to a good friend of mine. This turned out into a much simplified SDK on the on the SDK side. Obviously, we didn't have to deal anymore with this dual nature of product built with Ant, but then published also with Maven, made sort of Maven compatible. We are now talking about real build artifacts that gets pulled into the SDK, and therefore that obviously improves the quality of the artifacts and the quality of the palms, so that they can build your class path during development, because those are the real palms that are currently used to release Alfresco. And I think this is, after many years of managing this gap, I think this is certainly worth a mention, because it opens a whole another frontier to what we can do with the SDK.
Can I add one thing, Gab?
Absolutely, Ole.
Yeah. For those who aren't familiar with the terms, but when we say that it's fully Mavenized, it actually means you can download the source code for 5.0a and do a Maven clean install, and you have all the artifacts you need. Everything is installed in your local repository, and you can take the SDK and you can build that as well with Maven's clean install and use it all locally without relying on any Ant tasks or anything. Everything is built with Maven all the way.
Yep. And again, not making this a technology bash, but the idea is that now we have a fully orchestrated ecosystem, at least build process that can then be turned into an SDK, and whatever other build system you're using, whether that's Ivy, Gradle, or any sort of Maven repository compatible layouts, you are ensured that what you are looking at, what you are depending on, are the real artifacts that go through the Alfresco build and release process. I think that's a major improvement, and you guys might not be able to see that issue BD32, but it's finally being closed, and it talks about consider building with Maven. So after 8 years, kudos to Samuel. From the Alfresco SDK side, as Rich mentioned, we have moved to GitHub. I think that's been a major improvement in the visibility and sort of community momentum that the SDK is seeing. You guys see the link there. I really, hope that this will foster more contribution, more pull requests, as well as an easier, visible access to the SDK. As I mentioned, we are seeing a lot of community momentum, specifically Ole and Maurizio, our technical consultant from Europe, are putting a lot of effort into getting this to the next level. And especially, I think the very interesting part that we're going to demo today is that we are looking, I think, in a definitive way to the developer ergonomics, i.e., how does this SDK, which can perfectly work on the command line using Maven, but how does this neatly integrate with IDEs, like, for example, Eclipse and IDEA? How do we foster rapid development, real rapid development with this SDK? So many of these features are still in development, and we'll discuss them, but actually we will show you today a very promising example of how this is going to work with the Alfresco 2.0 release that we target actually to release by Summit. One point that I'd like to mention is also that we, as you were saying, Rich, we started with the old outdated SDK. Well, a decision has been made, and we are waiting for some final communication before making this public, but the old Java SDK, the sort of embedded sample projects, the old Ant Eclipse SDK, is not going to be part of the Alfresco 5.0 release. So moving forward, the Alfresco SDK becomes the sort of standard de facto SDK for Alfresco. And I think that's also going to help in a way, clarifying a nice entry point for new starters.
That's a huge win. That's wonderful.
So quickly on the SDK, if you have followed over the last years, we certainly tried first to consolidate the whole packaging, AMP packaging and installation side of things in a supported way. And over the last couple of years, so at Summit last year, and I think much better at the next upcoming Summit, so make sure that you're there, we focused on really improving the developer ergonomics. Specifically, as we approach the Summit 2014, San Francisco in September and London in October, maybe the opposite. No, yeah, San Francisco in September, London in October.
You're correct.
Thank you, Rich.
First. Yep.
We really, we already have some achievements in trunk committed in the SDK, and I wanted to list those here. Specifically, as I mentioned, that we migrated to GitHub. Ole has added a fully fledged Alfresco AMP share archetype that leaves aside from the repository AMP archetype that you guys should be already familiar with if you have worked with the SDK. So both of them use the same base structure, use the same features from the SDK, but we have provided a pre-configured module that works directly with share and gives you also nice samples to pick from in case you are, so to prevent you to have to go and crawl around for example, share config custom samples and things like that. I think, this is, I think, very good as more and more people, move to share development. The main feature, I believe, the main two features that I'd like to demo today are respectively IDE integration with Eclipse and IDEA. As I mentioned, we obviously had over the last years, different degrees of integration with IDEs, but I think the level that we got now is very close to ideal. And together with the usage of Spring Loaded, which is a Spring library for hot Java code reloading, we are able, if everything works, to have a fully, pretty much almost zero reloading-free development in Alfresco. This means that your Java classes will be automatically reloaded, your web resources will be automatically reloaded, your JavaScript, HTML files will be automatically reloaded without having to reload the context of the web app that, as you know, especially in the case of Alfresco, it might take even more than 1 minute to reload the full Alfresco context. So I want to stop for a second here just to sort of digest this. I mean, this might be a major improvement in the performances of Alfresco development, both on the Alfresco and share side.
Well, and it's Bindu gave a Tech Talk Live introducing some of these capabilities that he's been using at Zia.
Yep.
What was that? 6 months ago? But it was glued together. It was a lot of cool stuff, but it was kind of hard to construct the environment. And I'm impressed that you guys have now turned it into something we can all use in a very clean way. So it's neat to see the progress.
Well, a first attempt to it, I have to say, a first stab to it, after I saw Bindu's talk, that was actually before last Summit. So when I saw that talk, I made a self-commitment, which turned out on a couple of very long nights before Barcelona Summit, to actually have the same features in the SDK. So at the last Summit, we actually presented the sort of a remote JUnit running features, but they were using JRebel. And as you know, JRebel for code reloading is a proprietary tool, is for paying. So what we did really here is, on top of obviously, as you can see in the last point, sort of restoring the same JUnit remote running functionalities using Spring Loaded, which is a free product, we also push it one level further. We made sure that the IDE integration would completely work without any change on the core SDK structure. In fact, the major point why Bindu was able to have that approach is that he had was using really WAR projects rather than AMP projects as a base for the SDK. And at this point in time, I don't feel comfortable yet moving to that approach. simply for a support standpoint, meaning I think that approach, if not well controlled, can lead to side effects in the web app. So the neat thing is that we have the same features, but on the standard sort of AMP structure, at least Alfresco standard AMP structure, and we are also able to have, remote JUnit reloading, web resources reloading. The one thing that it actually doesn't reload, and I'll discuss it a little bit later, is Spring Beans. This is something that we sort of left out because Spring Loaded does not reload Spring Beans. But I think you can agree with me, creating or modifying a Spring Bean is probably much of a more rare operation than just changing Java code, changing your unit tests, or changing your web scripts. So we'll look into that, but for now, I think we have a 95%, at least 90% coverage of the old reloading use cases. So I'm really excited to show you that, especially if it works, and we're going to get to that very soon. I wanted to show you another couple of features, and obviously if you go to github.com/alfresco/alfresco SDK/issues, you can have a detail of all the issues. They are all sort of scheduled for the milestone 2.0 of the SDK. But in terms of what I'd like to see in there for Summit, there are a few very exciting things, more very exciting things coming up. First of all, I'd like to get the SDK on Maven Central, and I think that's a major improvement. That will be a major improvement for the simplicity of the SDK and for the entry level of the community to this SDK. What this would mean is that if we have the SDK available on Maven Central, we don't have to rely anymore on the Alfresco artifacts repository. Every Maven Java developer in the world will basically be able to just run a Maven archetype generate or spin up their Eclipse instance and create a new Maven project and have the Alfresco archetypes there available without any additional configuration, just because we're going to store this in Maven Central. And I think we still have to get there, but I really plan this as a must feature for 2.0. And I'm really excited about that. It will be my first project of Maven Central, so that's also some personal pride there. One point for the community, but also for enterprise developers, is you might know that Peter Monks has developed a tool called Alfresco Technical Validation Tool, which validates custom developments for best practices, for Alfresco best practices. This tool is written in Clojure. He provided just over last weekend a Java API to call this tool. I want to have this tool integrated in the Maven SDK in a final phase of the build to run a validation of your custom developments directly at development time, and being able to spot problems, issues, support issues directly at development time. In a way, fail early to not fail big. As you probably know, Ole has Mavenized all the old samples of the SDK. They are now stored in that project that you see there on screen at Alfresco SDK samples. We are going to release those either together with the SDK or aligned with the SDK, but we'll make sure that those samples are up to date with respect to the version number 2 of the SDK, and so with all the rapid development features that we show. I have a few of them that are should. I really would like to get them there. We'll see if that makes it by Summit. First of all, I want to give some kudos to Tunas Koi, which is one of our RM developers. He provided me with a contribution of some RM records management specific archetypes. I know RM is a very hot topic, so I really would like to have some additional archetypes in there specifically configured for RM. So we're going to look into that. I have the issue open already. We just need to get to it. We'd like to pre-configure community and enterprise Maven profiles so you can easily switch between community and enterprise. I know this has been a bit of a pain point in terms of the manual configuration required. We are going to do general bug fixing, cleanup. If you look at the filter there, it's pretty populated. We still have a little bit to go, but we have a month. And we have a couple of more things. One is, have some WebScript mock testing features using the mock WebScript server that is part of Alfresco. And lastly, and that sort of relates to what you mentioned before, Rich, we actually, Bindu has contributed to us the whole approach about integration testing that he presented last year. And while we already have many of the features in there, there are some of those that could be improved using his approach. And so we will be working with Bindu over the next couple of weeks to get, to sort of finalize the merging of these two approaches, which I think is really cool, and I want to thank Bindu and Zia for that. It's been really a welcome contribution. So, almost done talking. Hopefully I'm not overrunning. I just want to let you know, and that hopefully is going to make our community, training, consulting, and support friends happy. We try as much as possible to keep backwards compatibility with the existing SDK, obviously for what, with regards to the user experience, i.e. what are the commands that a user needs to run. That is not the same, obviously, from a version standpoint. The Alfresco SDK 2.0 will only work with Alfresco 5 and above, and that's because, obviously, we have Mavenized Alfresco, so the artifacts layout has somehow changed, and so the new SDK just assumes Alfresco 5.0 and a fully Mavenized Alfresco artifact set. But back to the user experience, the commands remain exactly the same as they were in the Alfresco SDK 1. So for AMP projects, you will have this profile, which is AMP2R, which basically does all the magic that you require for rapid development. And for the all-in-one project that we still have to complete, we'll have the usual -p run profile that will, again, run everything embedded and allow you rapid development features. As far as JRebel goes, we have kept sort of a basic support for it in the SDK, but we moved it to a profile called JRebel, which is actually deprecated and in a way superseded by Spring Loaded.
One thing we should add about the backwards compatibility, I think we could say that it is definitely possible to have the rapid development stuff put back into 4.2 and supported for that. And we talked briefly about maybe doing 1.1.2 or something like that for 4.2, because 4.2 is still the most recent release and is also the enterprise release, and there's a lot of people working on that now, and we might release that. Otherwise, I'll do a tutorial on how to integrate it, because I just did it last night on a customer project, and it works like magic. It's just beautiful. So yeah, it's definitely possible, right. But it might not be just right now. We'll do it. We'll focus for 5.0 now.
Yep. Thanks for bringing this up, Ole. I mean, I have to say, you can imagine. I think the more that we have community contributions on this, and I hope that this talk and then at Summit, as well as the visibility on GitHub, will help us with that. But until we have further contributions, it's difficult for me to manage multiple branches and keep releases going, maintenance releases going. So I'd certainly welcome some effort put on that, either if you want to open an issue, Ole, or if anyone from the community wants to take a stab of it, at it, I'd be certainly happy to get a 1.1x out that works with the newest features. So I think I'm overrunning, so I'll be a little quick here. I mentioned that already. Is this really hot reloading? Obviously, again, I will let you judge about that once that we find out if this really works. But what I can tell you, and I've tested, at least on my machine, I can reload Java classes, I can reload test classes, and execute remote JUnit tests, which means that you don't have to reload the Alfresco context at every unit test. I can reload web scripts, both JavaScript, FTL, and even Java backend web scripts. Obviously, the first time that you register web scripts, you will need to actually build your app with the web scripts in there, but then after that, you can change them as much as you want. Web resources, and obviously config files as part of the, sort of whatever it's in the class path gets easily reloaded. The only thing that we're not reloading right now is Spring contexts, but we might look into that, but again, I think this is certainly a minor practice with respect to all the others that we have currently covered. All of this does not require web app context reload.
Excellent. Bindu is asking if we reload dynamic content models.
Wow.
Or content models in general.
I didn't test that yet, but I would assume that you still have to go to the content model console and reload the model, because that is not just a class path thing. It's Alfresco that needs to compile the model. So you will need to basically, if I remember correctly, there is a content model console that you can go and just hit reload models. Again, I haven't tested that, but my assumption would be that yes, the file will be updated in the class path, hot, but you still will have to go to the Alfresco user interface to actually trigger Alfresco to recompile that model.
So there's content models in the data dictionary that you can use through the console, and so that probably won't work. But ones that you're wiring in through the Spring Bean on the class path, you still don't think will work. Is that correct? Or you think they will work if they're just on the class path?
I still think that you will have to reload it. I mean, I need to test it. I'm actually, kind of wild guessing here. Maybe we're like, and it just works. But what I think is those loaded from the class path gets loaded at Bootstrap, and the model gets compiled at Bootstrap. So changing the XML file, and that will work. It will change on the class path. It will be changed in the web app. But I don't think it will trigger a recompilation of the model, and also because the Spring context is not reloaded, so this is probably driven by Spring. So I think you still will need a manual step of just going into the web console and hit that button that will trigger the reload of the model within Alfresco. That's my assumption, but needs to be tested.
Excellent. Bindu's on IRC, he says that the content models on the class path, the UI doesn't allow you to reload those dynamically, but the ones in the data dictionary, of course, you can reload without restarting. Yep. I think that's what he's saying. Okay. Douglas is asking if the console allows you to reload content models as enterprise only, and it is. It's not part of.
No, it's not.
You go into the data dictionary, into the class path folder, and when you browse a content model that's in that class path. You go in the data dictionary into the content model folder, and when you find the content model that you stored there, so these are dynamic content models, not ones that are wired into the XML, there's an action on that content, the content model content that allows you to reload them. But I don't think there's any way to do that for ones that are on the class path because it doesn't show up in the data dictionary. So correct me if I'm wrong.
I think I'm looking at basically the console that I had in mind is this guy here, the dynamic models console. If I can find it, exactly what the
you gotta have a special service URL for that one.
Yes, I think that's the one. If you can go, I think if you go here again, I never tested it, but if you go to that console, which is a separate console, it's not within the share UI, or I mean, it's in the old Explorer UI, but let me just post it in the chat. If I can find the chat. Yeah, if you go to that, it should be, well, that's the web client config. So it should both reload web client config and content model. But I don't know exactly. It's too long that I don't play with it to actually know if it reloads the class path ones as well. I'm pretty sure that the data dictionary ones will be reloaded, but I'm not sure about the class path ones, honestly.
Excellent.
Okay. So moving forward, and actually to answer Douglas, no, that's not an enterprise-only feature. That's a console that is available also in community. So at this point, I guess I can get started with the demo, unless there are additional questions.
Lots of enthusiasm, but I think we've covered all the questions.
Okay, let's see if this all works. Okay.
Just as a clarification, Bindu says that when he's tried to reload a content model from the class path using the console, it hasn't worked. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that there is a combination of, you need something like Spring Loaded that actually really reloads things in memory in the class loader, not just on the class platform file system. And I think until you have that, obviously the content model console doesn't work. That's why I'm a little bit more optimistic in this case that, I actually have Spring Loaded that moves stuff from the class path file system from the class loader in memory, and then when things are in the class loader in memory, hopefully Alfresco should be able to update them. But again, I think Bindu, seems that Bindu has more expertise than I do in this area, so I'd be happy to circle back with him.
That'll be cool to try. Very cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to get this straight, the only prerequisite that you need, aside from obviously creating the project from the archetype, is to get your spring-loaded jar somewhere in your class path, in your downloads, in your hard disk, okay? This is a jar that you can easily download from Maven repositories. I have put a link in a resources slide that I'll share with you later. But all I did really here, prior to starting what we show now, is just download this jar, put it in a folder, and then I will basically execute my build with an agent. An agent that simply points to that jar, and that agent will basically provide the hot reloading capabilities that we've been discussing up until now. Okay, so let's give it a try. What I'm gonna do is, first of all, I'm gonna create a project as usual from an archetype. What we're gonna demo today, at least from my side, is the repository archetype. So what I want you to notice is that I'm looking at the catalog from public snapshots. So this is not a released version. I'm downloading an unreleased version that is really a development version.
Can you make your terminal font bigger?
Yep, absolutely. I can do that. Although it's going to be quite messy. I'll just do it after I select the archetype, okay?
Yeah, it was just good to see the command you're pasting in.
Yep, this is the command. Just a standard Maven archetype generate, and with an archetype catalog that is the one in public snapshots, okay? It's not the released one. So my the one that I want is the Alfresco AMP archetype, okay? So I'm going to select number 18. The version defaults to the latest, which is 2.0.0 snapshot. Our build server has just built that. As usual, I will add my group ID, my artifact ID, and let it run. As you can see, it works against 508 by default. At this point, as you can see, we have a test repo AMP project created. What I'll do right now is, just to show you, is I will import it in Eclipse. This is a Luna distribution, standard J2EE developer Luna distribution downloaded from the Eclipse website. Maven to Eclipse is already integrated in it, so I can just simply do import existing Maven projects. Browse.
And we've tested in Eclipse STS as well, the Spring Tool Suite project as well. That works just fine.
Thanks, Ole. I'm importing the AMP. As you can see, well, It's not in my working set, so just give me a second. I'll add it to the working set. As you can see, the project got imported without any problem. And I think that's an interesting bit first. This is nothing different than the original archetype, okay? So what I'd like to show, first of all, is the command that I'm running is the old, -p amp to war. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just run this command together with the spring-loaded options within the command line within the project that we just created. Obviously, I'll share all the details with you around the command line. These are the standard Java options, and this is the spring-loaded agent. Oops.
I need to run it as two separate commands. Okay, commands.
Well, whatever. I think there is something. The copy paste of these nice guys not working. Let me just do it like this. Simple as. Let me just do it manually. Yep, that should be okay.
So Bindu's asking if the all-in-one archetype is going to get into the 2.0.
Yes.
Yes, it's going to make it. Just give me a second, guys.
That's a
demo effect. Okay. Now, what this guy is doing is just really packaging your AMP, downloading the Alfresco War, installing the AMP in there, and running in embedded Tomcat, but with the reloading magic built into it. Okay. So this is the only command that you need to run from the command line. Once we've done that, all the rest is going to happen from Eclipse.
And if you don't like using the command line, you can create a run configuration in Eclipse and tell that to run that command, and you can control everything from Eclipse. But that's a matter of taste. If you like to have a huge web app running inside a huge IDE, that's a personal preference.
Absolutely. So we can wait a little bit for this to start up. In the meanwhile, I'll show you the project. If you have seen the AMP archetype, this is not changed. We have a demo component. We have our module in there, module configuration, some web folders with a demo JSP, and we have a unit test. Okay, so Alfresco is starting up. As you can see, it found one module, so it's installing my current module in it. This is basically done. So the first thing I'd like to show you, and that's actually the last one that I made work, so hopefully it is still going to work. I want to run a JUnit test. If you remember from last year, we have the support for remote JUnit running. So what I'd like to do is just go into Eclipse, do a run a JUnit test, and hope. Now the first time it's going to take about 10 to 15 seconds because it's actually doing an initial reload of the Spring context. 13.8 seconds. Now the second time I run this, it's 0.1 seconds. And these are full unit tests, actually integration, that are running in the Alfresco context. Meaning, if we didn't have this SDK running, you would have waited 2 minutes for Alfresco to start, depending on your machine, and then you'd be able to run this test. Obviously, you won't be surprised that if I change an assert and I rerun the test, I got red lights. So this is showing you how, and I can change it back, just to show that I'm not faking. Classes are hot reloaded, test classes are hot reloaded. We are running these unit tests without any change. And what we're talking about here is also not just, changes of, but we can also add, for example, and say, what is that, a cast? Yeah. Now we have added a method, and it still works. And if we change this guy, it's going to go red lights. Okay? So I think this is already, for those of you who do test-driven development, I think this is a major, major improvement in the speed of development on Alfresco. Now, second thing that I'd like to show you is the web resources. So for example, /Alfresco /JSP demoamp. I had put this demo JSP just to show that when I go here in the JSP and change it, if it all works, you see it running. No reload, no context web app reload. Okay? Now, I don't want to steal all the presentation, but I want to show you a more advanced example. So first of all, I can try to add some web scripts in there. I have my other project here, which is a sample project. That's the one where I tested from. Here there is a simple JavaScript web script that I'm going to add in there. So I'm going to add it in the Alfresco, extension, templates, web scripts, org Alfresco. Yeah, and I'm going to copy these 3 files, which, as you know, are our standard JavaScript, a simple JavaScript web script. Yeah. Now, the first time that you do that, you obviously you still need to reload the web script. It was already defined. We could have just changed it. But I'm going to go here, refresh web scripts. As you've seen, I didn't. I never tested this before. Yeah. So it is. I don't see a new web script in there. So it might be a chance that I missed something. Let's just see. Well, I think I was pushing it a little bit here.
Well, it should work, but anyways, I have and if we have time in my demo, I can show it because it works for me.
Well, what I can do is I would like to show you at least the reloading of the Java side of things, but we will need to probably cut it a little short. Let's see if I have a second. What I'm doing here is I'm adding just a simple Java backend web script together with all the examples that I've done to show this functionality. So I'm just going to copy these guys here. And I just missed at this point the definition of the Java backend web script. So I have these guys here. I'm going to quickly copy it in the service context of my new module. Save. Now, since we added the Spring Bean, we need to restart. This is the only time that we actually need to restart developing.
That's one way to avoid that. If you have JRebel, if you have a license, or if you can afford a license, then JRebel will load it new beans the first time. But once you change it, all bets are off. So you gain that one less restart with JRebel.
Yeah, I haven't tried how JRebel plays together with Spring Loaded, I have to say. But yeah, that's certainly something that we want to explore. I mean, JRebel is particularly powerful at reloading Spring Beans. So should that be, you know, a key feature, let us know and we'll look into that. Sorry that I'm stealing all the time of the presentation, but I think it's pretty interesting to show this example.
It is, it really is.
If I have followed all the steps correctly. Alfresco is about to start. Okay, we're ready. Now, if I go back to the JavaScript web script that we created before, as you can see, I have done already some testing as to, you know, changing the information that is printed. But if I go in here, as you can see, that told on the JavaScript web script, it changed right away on our web app. I didn't restart anything. If I change my free marker template, same thing. Okay, zero restart right away. Now, the most interesting part, I think, for those of you who develop Java backend web scripts, this string is actually printed out by a Java class. So if I change this right away and I go and refresh, you see it changed without any whatsoever wait or web app reload. And once again, this is not just method changes within a method changes, but I can, you know, call another class, and you'll see that this is going to be changing. I can, you know, do pretty much whatever you want. Null. Yeah. So this is really what I'd like to show. I hope that, you know, as seamless as you've seen, nothing was configured in Eclipse. All we did was really running one build, one specific command on the archetypes, and then the integration with the IDE is, I think, absolutely seamless. One last detail, and then I'll hopefully leave it to Ole. There's two components in it. One is spring loaded that does the class path resources reloading. But the biggest discovery for this SDK, and I think I'm going to blog post about it because I think this can be a generic free approach for rapid development on Maven, is the features of Tomcat 7 and the fact that you can configure a so-called virtual web app in the context XML that allows you to point back to your target classes, to your development version, so that you have a way to automatically prefer stuff that it's built by the IDE from stuff that is actually packaged into the web app. And these, you know, the combination of these two guys are, you know, give extreme advantages because zero waiting for class changing and zero waiting for test refreshes. So I think this has gone a little bit further than I expected, but I hope you enjoyed the show. Well, has everything, you know, almost worked. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I don't know if we have time for more or questions.
Do we have time for a quick share demo?
Yeah, let's get to Ole's demo.
Let me see if I can share my screen.
Rich, you know I'm always super verbose. I never
Good
learn.
stuff, though. It's quality.
So do you see my screen now?
Absolutely.
Good. So what I have here is set up with IntelliJ IDEA, where I have a share configuration running with the 2.0 SDK, and what we have here is a simple ICO page, ICO I think it was pronounced, which I'm fairly much in love with. It's pretty embarrassing. I wrote a tutorial about it and I can't pronounce the name, so. But anyways, we have a simple page definition here, and let's change. And then I just need to go into build and say make project, and that's a shortcut with Command F9. It doesn't. You can configure it to do it automatically. So I go in reload and we change the title. So that's pretty great. Now we have in the page definition, we have a horizontal widget which just splits it up, the screen in two horizontal, and let's remove some of the config from this this logo class. So it should be a bit bigger with some text, and we reload, and we have with the logo. Then this is really great because you can change everything. Let's go into a widget, and we can do works as well. I'm going through this really fast because I know we're a bit short on time. And here we have the test stuff. So yeah, that works as well.
So everybody in the channel votes that you can go slow and take your time because this is awesome stuff. So I think
okay.
we got another 10 minutes if we need it.
We got another 10 minutes. Okay, well, let's add a new widget. Let's just add a test widget, and this is let's just have it do the same. It will use the same template, and you have the existing one is just a box with a bit of CSS and some translations. But let's just hard code the new widget with this the string. This is a nice widget, and if you go to the page model, we can then change the widget it's using here. Widgets, and I just have to change the name of this method. All right, so let's make this and see if it works. And it did. So I just added and changed components of an ICO page. I introduced a new component, new widget, and that worked as well. Another part of share development is making a new dashlet. I'm gonna copy paste a bit of code. I've done this beforehand just to show that I'm not cheating here. If I go to add dashlets, there's no custom dashlet I can add here, so let's cancel that. And I have some copy paste code here. So let's create a new dashlet. So we create a file. And this is essentially a dashlet is just a web script. So we introduce new web script, give it a URL. We need to have some HTML, FTL file, and that needs to have some content. And I've stole this dashlet from the samples I created during the Global Virtual Hackathon. Not much here.
So you technically didn't steal them?
No, because I wrote them. All right, so just to recap, I just created 3 new files. We have a new web script with a dashlet. It has URL and everything. We have a JavaScript controller, which will set up the dashlet with the top line, the bar, and a help message and some stuff. And we have the actual template with the hello world. So we all have a nice hello world dashlet. Now, as we said before, because we introduced a new thing, we would have to restart. But since we're talking about web scripts, we can't just go and say refresh web scripts. And this should work, and it did not.
Okay, so I broke something, Ole. I think I broke something.
You broke something, all right.
Yep.
Well, not to worry. It's supposed to work because it worked for me last night and earlier today when I tested this, so I could add the new web scripts and just refreshed it, and it would actually work. But let's just restart here real quick and see if we can't get it to work. Again, this is really much a demo. It's a snapshot of what's to come. And again, as Gab said, your mileage may vary. It is still quite heavily in development.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the idea is to show the features and trust us. We want this to be working when we'll have a final release on this. So
yeah. All right, so we can. I think it didn't work because I've done this before, but yeah, we have a very nice hello world dashlet. So, and if we go and change this, we just have to make the project. We should have the changed, and we have like a nice. So I've within the last 4 or 5 minutes, I've changed an ICO page. I've introduced a new widget, and I introduced a new dashlet that could be applied to the user's dashboard. That is quite something, I believe. It does come with some limitations, though. I can't change CSS files. I can change the internationalization files for translations, and this is my plea. I'm sorry to hijack this Tech Talk Live, but if anyone from the UI team is looking at this and thinking this is just awesome, well, then yes, it is awesome, and I helped make this available. Then now, please, could you do me a favor and allow us to disable the dependency cache of share? This is the only thing holding us back to have real rapid development. If you need to change the properties files for translations, or if you need to change CSS files, you need to disable the dependency. We need to clear the dependency cache. And currently, there's no way to disable this. So you have to go into the this button here to clear the dependency cache, or you have to create a tool inside your IDE to actually go and clear it for you. But please, for the love of, I don't know who to pray to, but we need to be able to disable it. So yeah, yeah, that's I think that's just about it. I have to go to show for this demo. I think I'll stop sharing my screen now, and we can get some questions going.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts from IRC. First of all, Bindu pointed out that you're an IntelliJ guy, and Gab was using Eclipse, and that's awesome.
Yep.
It just worked.
Yeah, it worked, and I just tested it a few hours ago, and NetBeans as well is happy. And oh, I forgot to show one thing. For those who I know, some people like Boris, no, not to mention any names, but they really dislike using IDEs. They want to live in the terminal and the command line, and they live and breathe for it. And if you ask me 5 years ago, I've been the same. I would said, well, I just want my Emacs or my VI or whatever command line tool, and I want to use that. Well, you're in luck, because all you have to do, you just launch up your Emacs, and if it has some integration with Maven, that's great. But all you need to do, you could change the files directly in the command line and just type Maven mvn compile, and that'll do everything, and just refresh. So you don't have to use NetBeans, you don't have to use IDEA, IntelliJ IDEA, you don't have to use Eclipse, you can use it for the command line. And this is really, really great, I think.
I guess
warms my module editor, my modular editor, modal editor heart to hear that. That's just nice.
Yeah. I think I just want to add something. Thanks for bringing that up, Ole. I mean, I think that's really, in a way, the completion of one of the biggest visions that we had for this SDK. What I didn't, when I originally started this SDK, was because I'm happy to work in IDEs. I mean, I'd like to integrate with an IDE, but my development process cannot be IDE bound. I like to be able, my build to be able to run in continuous integration in a headless environment. There are very different personas developing on Alfresco, Java developers, Spring developers, UI developers. Likely UI developers don't really need all this, IDE tooling. They could just, have a TextMate, and a Maven window where they run Maven compile, and that's it. I mean, just to sort of bring it one step further, I'm planning to bring this back in the Alfresco build, because we have a lot of UI developers there that don't really need the whole Java, heavyweight class reloading. They just need a simple mechanism that automatically picks up web resources changes, regardless whether you're doing that from an IDE or from a text editor. And I think that's the power of Spring Loaded and the Tomcat plugin configuration. It's just all outside of the IDE. It works nicely because all the IDE has to do is just compile, nothing else, and that's what IDEs are good at. But other than that, is all dealt by this external AMP2WAR profile. So I just wanted to add on that.
And on that note, we do need to wrap up. Great demos. I appreciate both of your preparation and, of course, building the tool in the first place, as well as Mao and everybody else who contributed. Gab, where are you going to put your slides?
I'm going to put my slides wherever you tell me to.
So we'll figure that out. We'll throw them up as SlideShare or speaker.
Absolutely. I can put it up. I can put it up on my SlideShare, and I'll share the link with you. Okay.
And then we'll put the link in the show notes. So when we post this to YouTube, and we'll put it on the event page, so everybody has a link. So.
Okay.
I have one thing to add before we stop for today. We're going to launch a public beta within the next few days, hopefully within this week, so people can start trying this out. Along with the beta, I'm going to release a video explaining how to set this up in Eclipse and IntelliJ IDEA, and perhaps even NetBeans if someone requests this. But we will have a tutorial on how to set it up. It will probably be a video tutorial. It's faster to do, so there'll be something along to help people get started working with this.
Great work. That's just it's great progress. This is so exciting. So thank you very much. We look forward to meeting everyone in person at Summit, and that's a great opportunity to congratulate these gentlemen personally. I'm sure that you'd be happy to buy them a beverage or food item of their choice for all the time they've saved you. So and of course, Alfresco will take care of some of the food at Summit as well, so that'll be fun. So thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you. So we will. So next is we'll talk to you on the 15th for Office Hours with Doug. We will not have Tech Talk Live in September or October because we'll be focused on summits. But November we're gonna have Tech Talk Live. We've got still figuring out exactly who's going to present. We've been discussing a couple ideas. So with that, we will end, and we'll see you later.